Hello class, my name is LJ GARBA. I am one of the Youth of English facilitators. I'm going to take the first part of Module 4. This module has two parts, that is the first and the second part. I'm going to take care of the first part of this module, and my colleague is going to take the second part of it. Module 4 is writing skills. Writing is a powerful skill. We use writing to fulfill our personal demands, such as our businesses, to communicate with other people around in our society, to communicate with our teachers in schools, our friends, our colleagues, and so on. The ability to write well is one of the most highly prized skills. For one to communicate effectively and fluently, he has to use his knowledge of grammar, punctuation, and spelling. These ingredients enable other people to understand what we see, because grammar has to do with the style in which we arrange words in different sentences, and punctuation is the method of separating or linking words, phrases, and sentences in order to make meaning clear, while paragraph is used to separate materials into topics. For one to communicate, he has to make his writing clear by the use of these items, that is grammar, punctuation, and spelling. What is writing? Writing is a type of accepted, orderly written communication. It uses words, that is, it translates sounds into readable codes or symbols, which are known as alphabets. That is, writing is a combination of alphabets or letters to form words, from words to sentences, from sentences to paragraphs, from paragraphs to a text. That is, it is a code that is used in written form. Writing is used to develop a text which can be used to communicate with other people. Writing must aim at conveying the inner thought of the writer to the reader in the simplest and the most understandable language. That is, apart from the spoken form, the written form or writing is one of the means of communication from one person to another. Essentials of good writing. A good writing has many qualities, some of which are: the writing must satisfy the purpose of the writer and the reader. A good writing has to enable the reader to identify the theme and the purpose of that particular writing. A writer must choose a subject matter. That is, a good writer must have a subject matter for that particular writing. It must be organized, it must be coherent, and it has to have a grammatical structure, such as concord, good spelling, and correct punctuation. It must be legible, and it must put in a right channel. Essentials of good writing. A good writing has many qualities, some of which are: The writing must satisfy the purpose of the writer and the reader. A good writing has to enable the reader to identify the theme and the purpose of that particular writing. A writer must choose a subject matter. That is, a good writer must have a subject matter for that particular writing. It must be organized, it must be coherent, and it has to have a grammatical structure such as concord, good spelling, and correct punctuation. It must be legible, and it must put in a right channel. A paragraph is a group of sentences that express a single idea. It is a group of sentences that talk about a particular topic. In other words, a paragraph is a group of sentences that talk about one idea. And this paragraph could be indented or it could be marked by leaving a blank line from the first paragraph to the next paragraph or preceding paragraphs. In the previous slide, I explained what a paragraph is, and in each paragraph there must be a topic sentence, which is usually introduced in a sentence. A topic sentence can do more than an introduction to the subject of the paragraph. A good topic sentence states an idea or an attitude, that is, the controlling idea about the topic, as well as which controls what the sentence in the paragraph will discuss. In other words, a topic sentence, it is a sentence that explains or that controls what all the sentences are talking about in a particular paragraph. Recognizing the topic sentence. Where should the topic sentence be placed in the paragraph? A topic sentence, as explained in the previous slide, is the controlling idea of a particular paragraph or a controlling sentence that is placed in a paragraph. This topic sentence can be placed at the beginning or near the beginning of a paragraph. It can be placed near the middle or end of a paragraph, depending on the type of the paragraph the writer is using. Sometimes both the topic and the controlling idea are not stated clearly in one sentence. That is, it can be placed, maybe the controlling idea can be placed in one sentence and the topic might be placed in another sentence. That is, both are implied in different sentences rather than being used in one single sentence. What is an AC? Because in writing we have what is called AC writing. AC refers to any short piece of writing that analyzes or interprets a situation in a personal way. That is, any piece of writing that analyzes or interprets a situation, it is an AC. Many class assignments call for an AC writing because so much of what we write is likely to be an AC form. Some ACs contain the opinion of the writers. Some classify or compare and contrast situations. Some describe a particular event, and in some, the writer tries to convince the reader to follow a course of action. That is a persuasive AC. That is, there are different types of ACs. As we can see, there is descriptive, persuasive, and so on. AC are made up of 3 parts. That is, for one to have an AC, he is expected to have these 3 parts. That is an introduction, main body, and then conclusion. Types of AC. There are basically 4 types of AC. We have a narrative AC, descriptive AC in these slides, and we are going to look at the remaining 2 in the next slide. A narrative AC tells a story of what happened in the past, which could be factual or created. That is a fiction. That is a narrative AC. It is telling the reader what happened in the past, and that event could be factual, that is something that really happened, or a fiction, that is something which is just created, that is it didn't happen, it's just a fiction, it is a created narration. The dominant tense used in narrative AC is the past tense. If the narration is typically experienced, or it may be going on how the present tense is used. That is, in a situation whereby the narration is a typical experience, that is what people usually do, the tense, present tense can be used there. The second type of AC we have is descriptive AC. This is a clear picture of a situation or an event. Its outlooks, behavior, etc. That is, in a situation whereby the writer is given a clear picture of an event or a situation, then it is what is called a descriptive AC. Here, adverbs, adjectives, figure of speech, such as metaphor, simile, are used. That is, in a situation whereby the writer is describing a situation or event, he is expected to use adverbs and adjectives, and we explained these items in our previous slide. The description must be organized so that the reader can vividly imagine the scene, object, or person being described. That is, when a writer is describing a situation or event, he should try as much as he can to make it clear in a situation whereby the reader can be imagining what he is reading. The third one is argumentative AC. This is the type of AC present a point of view convincingly for the reader to share or agree. That is argumentative AC. It is a kind of AC whereby the writer is either supporting or opposing an opinion. It's meant to either persuade, prove a point, or discuss problem by giving various sides of argument with or without solutions. This is what is an argumentative AC, and these argumentative AC is part of the ACs we use during debate. The fourth one is expository AC. This involves giving explanation or specific directives. For example, when you buy a new phone or you buy medicine, there is a leaflet there. So in that leaflet you can see the explanation on how you're going to take the drugs, or the instruction on how to use your phone. This is what is called expository AC. It is just given an explanation. It is kind of AC that enlightens the reader through analysis, comparison and contrast, clarification and exemplification. The aim is to instruct instruct or inform. That is the aim of expository essay, is to inform or to give instruction. What is letter writing? In spite of the fact that mails and text messages are used as means of correspondence, also letter writing is widely used by many people and organizations to correspond or communicate with other people or organizations. Letters are very much important in organizational activities. That is why companies employ highly trained and specialized secretaries and legal practitioners to help, among other responsibilities, in writing good letters for them. Even though we are using mails, text messages, chats, and so on, but letter writing has a very important place, and it is used by many people and organizations. There are types of letter writing. We have formal letter, informal letter, and semi-formal letter. It is important to know that the type of a letter is determined by the tone, physical features, and the purpose which it is written. That is, the tone used in that particular letter determines what or which type of letter the writer is writing. A formal letter, otherwise known as a business letter or official letter, is the letter meant for official communication in business establishment, public institutions, or private organization. That is, a formal letter is what is called an official letter or a business letter. A formal letter may take the form of an application letter, letter of complaint, letter of request, letter of inquiry, or letter of acknowledgement. All these letters are formal letters. The language of formal letters should be accurate, concise, clear, and strictly formal, without unnecessary greetings or show of familiarity. That is, whenever you are writing a formal letter, you should go direct to the point or direct to the message you want to send, without using any greetings or words that will show a kind of familiarity between you and the reader or the receiver of the letter. It is also advisable that a writer of a formal letter should avoid such language usage as ambiguity, contradiction, slangs, idioms, proverbs, and so on. That is, when you are writing a formal letter, you should avoid use of ambiguous words. That is, a word that has more than one meaning, or contractions. By contractions is like I explained it in the previous slide. Let's say you're going to write I am. You should write that I am without contracting it to am, and so on. Format of a formal letter. There is a kind of format of a formal letter. That is, for one to write a formal letter, he is expected to follow this format. Number one, address. Formal letters have two different addresses: the address of the writer and the address of the recipient. The address of the writer can be in blocked or slanted form and must be written in full, with the exception of formal abbreviation. That is, a formal writing letter has two addresses. That is, the writer's address at the right side and the recipient address at the left side of the paper. The address of the writer is written at the top right hand side of the first page, followed by the date, and this is followed at the left side of the page by the address of the recipient, which starts at the first line followed by last line of the address of the writer. What this paragraph is saying is that immediately after writing the writer's address at the top right hand side of the first page, the next thing is that writing the recipient address at the left side of the page immediately after the writer's address. Abbreviations such as ST for street, RD for road, etc. are not allowed in both the two addresses. That is, whether in the writer's address or recipient address, you shouldn't use this type or kind of abbreviation. The name of the country should be written if the letter is to be sent to another country. That is, in a situation whereby you are sending the letter to another country, so the name of your country is expected to be in your address. The second thing is the date. They should be written below the address of the writer and before the address of the recipient, followed by a full stop. These are some of the ways of writing a date. That is, immediately after writing your address, then date is followed, and these are the format or ways of writing the date as we can see it on this slide. The next thing is salutation. This is the kind of greeting with which the writer opens his or her letter. That is, when you are writing a letter, immediately after your address and recipient address, the next thing is salutation. That is the type of greeting the writer opens his or her letter. It is written at the left hand side of the paper, immediately below the address of the recipient. The salutation is always followed by a comma. For example, dear sir, dear madam, and so on. Here abbreviations are allowed with titles such as Mr., Mrs., Miss, Doctor, etc. That is, in salutation, the abbreviation is allowed. Let's say, for instance, you can say abbreviate Mrs. or Mr. and so on. However, one can decide to drop the full stop after each title. The fourth thing on formal letter is the title of or heading of the letter. That is, in a formal letter, there is a title. That is that is the subject matter of that letter. This is written below the salutation and shows the subject matter of the letter. That is, immediately after salutation, then title is followed, and the title will tell the reader what the letter is all about. However, if written in lowercase, title must be underlined. That is, in a situation whereby you are writing the title in small letters, that is lowercase, you should underline the title. But if you are writing with uppercase, that is capital letters, there is no need of underlining the title. The fifth thing, that is number 5, is the body of the letter. This section contains all the information which the letter aims to pass across. The section also contains the introduction, middle, and the conclusion of the letter. That is, the body of the letter is where the writer expresses or writes all the information he wants the recipient to read. The introductory part gives the background information on and the purpose of the letter. That is, the introduction gives the background information of the letter. And the middle part presents and develops the item of information the letter is intended for in short paragraphs. As I said earlier, that is, a formal letter should be concerned that you shouldn't expect it to be very long. The conclusion part states the desire or hope about what should happen next. That is the conclusion. In the conclusion, the writer will just state his desire or hope about what should be the next action. This is done in order to avoid abrupt ending of the letter. That is, in order to just end the letter, so there is a conclusion. The complementary clause or subscription is the sixth item in our formal writing. This is written about 2 lines from the body of the letter at the left or right of the page. The acceptable form of complementary clause in formal letters is yours faithfully. That is, the complementary clause is where the writer writes yours faithfully, which is the formal form of complementary, with the Y in uppercase. That is, while in writing yours faithfully, the Y in yours should be in uppercase, that is, in a capital letter, and the F in lowercase. Other alternative ways of closing formal letters include yours truly, best regards, and sincerely yours. Note that only the first letter of complementary clause is written in uppercase. That is, the first letter of complementary is the only letter that should be in capital letter. A comma should be used at the end of complementary clause before the signature and the name of the writer. That is, immediately after writing yours faithfully, then you should use comma there. Then the next thing is signature, then the name or your name as the writer of the letter. The 7th item in formal letter is the signature and name of the writer. The signature of the writer should follow complementary clause or subscription, then his or her full name. A woman should identify her gender by indicating her marital status, putting Mrs. or Miss if she is not married, and Mrs. if she is married, or else Miss, which applies to both married and unmarried women or women. All these titles should be written in bracket after her full name. That is, if the writer is a woman, so immediately after writing her name, she should identify her marital status in bracket by either using Mrs. or Miss. This is the sample of formal letter. You can see that at the right top is the writer's address. That is, you as a writer, that is where you're going to put your address. And at the left side is the recipient address, where the writer is writing the letter to the registrar, then followed by dear madam, that is the salutation. Then the title is at the middle or at the center of the letter, then the body of the letter, and then the complementary clause at the end. The next type of letter we have is informal letter. This is a letter written to family members, relatives, friends, and so on. It is otherwise known as a friendly or personal letter. That is, informal letter is the letter we write to our family members, relatives, friends, and so on. Informal letters can be written for a number of purposes, such as to congratulate someone on the birth of a new baby, to express sympathy, or to offer greetings, and so on. Due to the level of familiarity between the writer and the recipient of an informal letter, the language of the letter is expected to be relaxed, casual, and chatty. That is, when you are writing an informal letter, you can use language that is relaxed, that is a letter that can be chatty, that is that you are chatting with a friend, and you can use proverbs, you can use greetings, and so on. However, the level of informality in these letters may differ from one person to another. That is, when you are writing a letter to a friend, the language used is different from the language you will use when you are writing that letter to a relative, and so on. Format of an informal letter. The format of an informal letter is first, in informal letter there is only one address, that is the address of the writer, written at the top right hand side of the first paragraph, followed by the date. That is, in an informal letter, what is required is the address of the writer only. That is, there is only one address, followed by a date. Also, in an informal letter, there is a salutation. The salutation usually takes the form of "Dear Sani" or "Dear Joseph." For close relatives, one can use "My dear mother," "My dear daddy," and so on. Note that a writer may decide to write the salutation in upper and lower case as the above example show, or he or she may capitalize only the first letter of salutation, as in "My dear brother." So you can see there are different styles one can use, and the salutation is always followed by a comma. The next thing is the body of the letter. That is, in informal letter, after the writer's address and salutation, the next thing is the body of the letter. There is no need of writing any title there. This is the stage where the writer explains the message he or she wants to convey to the reader. And the tone of the language of informal letters is very important, as it shows the level of familiarity and closeness between the two parties. The language of informal letter may be used in contracted forms such as "doesn't," "your," "isn't," and so on. The next thing is complementary clause. For informal letter, the complementary clause or subscription may include any of these forms: "Yours sincerely," "Yours loving daughter," "Yours loving friend," and so on. And it should be followed by a comma. The name of the writer should be written below the complementary clause. There is no need of putting your signature in an informal letter. That is, immediately after the complementary clause, the next thing is to write your name. Here is the sample of an informal letter. You can see we have the writer's address at the top right side of the page, then the salutation, "Dear Said," then the body of the letter, then at the end is the complementary clause, that is "Yours sincerely," then the name, draw. As I explained earlier, there are three types of letter writing, that is formal, informal, and then semi-formal. So in this slide we are going to look at semi-formal letter. This is a letter which shares some characteristics of both formal and informal letters. As such, it is regarded as a letter which is neither formal nor informal. That is, semi-formal is a letter that is neither a formal letter nor an informal letter. That is, there is a combination of some features or characteristics of formal letter and informal letter combined together. A semi-formal letter is the letter one writes to someone he or she knows but doesn't share close relationship or familiarity with. These include letters to former school head or boss for information, letters to an adult family friend, and letters to our father's or mother's friend and similar persons. That is, a semi-formal letter is a letter that one writes to someone who is not directly related to him, as the example given here. This kind of letter contains only the address of the writer, followed by salutation, that is, dear Mr. or Mrs. or dear Sir, and this is followed by the body of the letter, which will be written in a polite and respectful manner. So you can see that in semi-formal letter we start with one address followed by a salutation, that is, dear Sir, which are the features of what you call it, informal letter. But the language or the tone of the language should be in a polite and respectful manner, which is one of the features of formal letter. However, the language should not be too serious to the extent that the letters looks more formal than semi-formal, and the closing of our semi-formal may range from more formal to less formal. Thus, the letter can be closed with yours sincerely, yours truly, best regards, and so on. And finally, the writer should write his or her name in full, or his or her initials, and the surname below the close complimentary. This is the end of lecture 1 on this module, that is module 4. We shall continue in lecture 2 of the module. Thank you for listening.